Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Sharon Bown, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Wing Commander Michael Garside. Today we commemorate the 105th anniversary of the Battle of Polygon Wood. In mid-1917, British Commander-in-Chief Field Marshal Sir Douglas Haig planned an offensive to break through the strongly fortified defences enclosing the Ypres salient, drive the Germans from the surrounding ridges and sweep through to the German submarine bases on the Belgian coast. Operating as part of the British Second Army, the 1st and 2nd Australian Divisions had met with success at the Battle of Menin Road. With their ranks depleted due to casualties, they were replaced in the line by the 4th and 5th Australian Divisions, as the next phase of the 3rd Battle of Ypres was put into motion. The Battle of Polygon Wood saw 9 British and Dominion divisions advancing over an 8.5-kilometre front. The assault was almost derailed by a German attack the day before the planned offensive, but after a nearly day-long fight, the German attack was stopped. The Australian 15th Brigade had played a pivotal role in this action, but they had suffered heavy casualties. The following morning, only 1 battalion in the brigade remained fit to attack. In the early hours of the 26th of September, 105 years ago today, a devastating artillery barrage heralded the commencement of the battle. The barrage that shielded the advancing infantry was described by official Australian war historian Charles Bean as the most perfect that ever protected Australian troops. It roared along like a Gippsland bushfire, with clouds of smoke and dust so thick that troops had to use compasses to maintain direction. There were delays as dogged German defenders were overcome, but by the end of the day, the Australians had taken their objectives and then held them against determined counterattacks. But the victory was not without cost. As with the battle for Menin Road, casualties were high. The British and Empire troops suffered over 15,000 casualties, more than a third of which were Australians. Today we remember all those who died in the Battle of Polygon Wood and whose names are recorded here on the Roll of Honour. We also remember the survivors who returned home. This evening, we warmly welcome Mr. John King, President of the Returned and Services League of Australia, ACT branch. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial and by students on behalf of Trinity College Blakeview from Blakeview, South Australia. If you are able, would you now please stand and join in singing the National Anthem?
Our home
Those requiring a seat, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Lieutenant David Landale Maughan, David Maughan was born on the 8th of October 1880 in Malmesbury, Victoria, the youngest son of David and Magdalena Maughan. He received his education at Melbourne's Scotch College, where he was remembered for his skill and accuracy as a rifleman in the Victorian Rifle Association Cadets. On completion of his schooling, Maughan took up employment as an accountant and clerk with the Bank of New South Wales in Moree. At the outbreak of war in 1914, he was working in the Glen Innes branch of the bank. David Maughan enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 30th of May 1915 at the age of 34. Maughan was allocated to reinforcements for the 2nd Battalion and embarked for Egypt on board the troop ship Warilda in early October 1915. Maughan reached Egypt in January 1916 and spent time training before being sent to the School of Instruction in March. On completion of his training there, he joined the 14th Australian Machine Gun Company. In June 1916, Maughan arrived in France but was taken ill soon after. He was admitted to hospital with a case of renal colic, which saw him evacuated to England. Maughan spent several weeks recovering before rejoining his unit on the front line in late August 1916. In September, he wrote to his brother about life on the front, saying, "It is a terrible thing when you come to the real thing, to think that one nation or nations are laying themselves out to kill their fellow men. The bombardment is going hot and strong now. I wish you could hear it. A continual roar. It shakes everything, ground and air." In January 1917, Maughan was promoted to Lance Corporal and sent for further training at the School of Instruction in Grantham, England. He trained with machine guns and joined the Officers' Cadet Battalion. Maughan graduated from the School of Instruction and qualified for a commission in the AIF, returning to his unit in August 1917 as a lieutenant. By mid-September 1917, plans were well underway to attack the Germans' defensive position at Polygon Wood. Polygon Wood was a significant landmark on the Ypres salient and an essential part of Allied attempts to take Passendale Ridge. By 1917, the wood had been reduced to burnt stumps. German forces had fortified the area with concrete blockhouses, barbed wire and an observation post, making the area a treacherous target for the advancing troops. Despite heavy enemy resistance, Australian soldiers secured the observation post and had taken Polygon Wood by the end of the 26th of September. The enemy launched numerous unsuccessful counterattacks over the following days, and the fighting continued until early October. The cost of success was high, with the Allies sustaining more than 20,000 casualties over the course of the battle. Among the dead at Polygon Wood was 38-year-old Lieutenant David Landale Maughan. On the first day of battle, Maughan went into no man's land to rescue a wounded comrade who was stranded on the battlefield. Before Maughan could reach him, Maughan was shot by an enemy sniper, sustaining a chest wound which killed him instantly. Lieutenant Maughan was remembered as a gallant officer who was endeared to the men of his unit. A gunner recalled that days before Maughan was killed, he refused to join his fellow officers inside a pillbox, saying to them, "As outside is good enough for my men, then it's good enough for me." Maughan was buried on the battlefield where he fell. After fighting subsided in the region, his remains were exhumed and buried at Battery Corner Cemetery in Belgium. In 1920, his 86-year-old father wrote to Base Records saying, "That my boy's grave is known is a great comfort to me, more than words can tell." His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lieutenant David Landale Maughan, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director and staff, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorial's redevelopment project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.